Hey everyone, how's it going? Seth, keeping it real. Welcome to the weekly Mastermind Roundtable. This is specifically only for lifetime members, gold and diamond, and legacy members. And as you know, every Friday, we interview a special guest who has phenomenal success in the area of online entrepreneurialism. And today I'm really privileged because similar to interviewing Kiwi and Christine, we get to interview one of our own people. And so everyone, this is Usher. Usher, welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Thanks for being here, man. I really appreciate it. As you guys probably saw my post, in peak season, Usher does 200,000 a day. And on regular season, 1,000 transactions a day on Amazon. So this guy's crushing it. He's doing more than I do. He's really, really well. And that's why it's a real honor to be able to talk to him. And what's unique is Usher does private label, but he has also a lot of experience in Amazon arbitrage. He's been venturing into private label for a few months now, but arbitrage has been something that he began with. So we're going to make this 100% live Q&A. Ask Usher questions that you want to know more about. And for those of you guys who are private label only, there's a whole lot of information you can glean from arbitrage that applies to private label. Some of the principles are the same. Some things are very different. Some things are very similar. And a lot of our most successful sellers started in arbitrage and then moved over to building a brand in private label. Now, one thing I have to tell you guys about Usher, this guy does not sleep, or when he does, it's very limited. Usher, I can say this in 100% sincerity, I've never been around someone who puts in more hours a day on his business than Usher. I don't know of anyone who does it like he does. And I've tried to match his sleep schedule, and I cannot. Like, this guy is a beast. When I talk to Usher, he's always challenging me to think bigger. He always has a different perspective, and I love that. And that's the kind of people I want to constantly surround myself with so I can grow. So, Usher, thank you so much for being here last minute. Our other guest had to postpone. Just so you guys know, next week you get to hear from Yiğit Tuna. He's in Turkey. He's crushing on Amazon. He has a YouTube channel. He is one of our own members, and he'll be talking to you guys as well about private label. So, Usher, thanks for being here. Great to see you, Valerie and Jenna.
Hi.
All right. So, Usher, could you start with your background? Like, tell us how you got involved in Amazon. What were the steps you took to get up to 1,000 transactions a day? What was that like for you?
I got into Amazon pretty much by mistake. I was looking for something to do, and a friend of mine comes over, and he was telling somebody else who was looking for something to do, you know, about buying stuff online, looking for deals, looking for different, you know, in-store, online, you know, using rebates, all these type of different things. And I'm like, can I make real money doing it? I turn to him, I go, can I make real money doing it? He thinks about it, and he goes, yeah. And he told me the parameters of, you know, starting to look on Amazon at bestsellers and stuff like that. And, you know, you use different tools of where you can get it for cheaper and you see a spread. Today they have a lot of other tools, but back then it was Price Blink, and, you know, it brings up different deals. And I jumped in, bought 500 of an item, sold it within 2 weeks. And after that, you know, I just started finding more items, you know, building up from there. So that's how I got started.
Go ahead.
After that, you know, I started picking up more items, different ideas, and you know, it's a whole big world out there. And you know, it has its ups and downs and hiccups, and you buy something and it doesn't work out because the price. Then you start learning how to look at seasonal items, how to look at items that you know, there's a reason why it's high. You know, you got to look at the average price, you know, and sometimes you overbuy and sometimes you underbuy, and sometimes, you know, it's very unpredictable because all of a sudden there's a deal, now it's not available, and you start learning the business from there. And along the way, I got to tell you, there's a lot of mistakes, but overall, it's pretty good.
Of all the people I've talked to, Usher, you're probably one of the most detached from your money, which you don't mind taking. Here's 500,000, throw it into this, see if it works. Here's 20,000, throw it into this and see if it works.
I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't recommend it because it
But I've seen you do this, like where maybe not those specific numbers, but where you really do, you're not attached to your money. Like you leverage it very separate from you in order to make business. And Usher does a lot of different business as well, not just Amazon. So could you talk a little bit about that principle of leveraging your capital in a way that is effective? Because this is something that you've challenged me with a lot.
You got to look at money like it's like your soldiers. You got your soldiers, right? You got your foot soldiers. Then you got your tanks. Then you got your jets. You got your ships. You got your submarines and everything. That's how you have to look at it. And they're there to use. In other words, it ain't until you're done with everything. Until you're 120 years old and you don't need anything anymore. Until then, just use it. Now some people can use it more, and some people can use it less, and some people, it depends on the comfort zone. Some people risk everything and go into debt in order to make it big, and some people, are very happy taking a 9-to-5 job, and whatever they make, they make. So everybody's a little different with that, and I can't tell you what I'm doing is correct. It could be very risky, and I've gotten burnt in the past. But if you're not going to try, if you're not going to try it, you're just never going to find out.
Yeah, you definitely do not have a problem with high risk. Some people would not take on the same level of risk that you do. But I know you would also agree that you have to take on some level of risk if you're going to make money, period. And Warriors, if you're ever too risk averse, you won't make money. You have to be able to take on risk. So could you really specifically talk, how did you, when you first found that first product, whatever it was, how did you find it? And what kind of tactics did you use and criteria for finding products that actually make you money on Amazon?
I saw a product. Back then they didn't have these tools that you could scrape Amazon, you could scrape other sites. The only tool that I had was a price called Price Blink, which is still around. I don't know how accurate it is, but I bumped into a camera that was like number 8 in camera and photo on Amazon. And if I recall, the price was like $250 on Amazon, selling for $250. And I found it by Overstock for like $199 or something like that. So, you crunch the numbers and you got yourself a nice margin. On top of that, Overstock was giving you like 5% back in Overstock dollars, which you could buy more with. And on top of that, I don't remember which site I used, Ebates or Mr. Rebates or something like that. They gave me like 3%, and it was a purchase of 500 cameras. So at the end of the day, there was a nice profit in it. And I had no idea how to list an item. I had no idea, how it's going to come. It just came. I didn't know about labeling the items. I didn't know about anything. But, I just jumped in together with my brother back then. And we jumped in, we packed it up, and we sent it out. And we sold probably within about 2 weeks. I would say about 2 weeks.
So the criteria were 2 things I'm hearing. Number 1, well, maybe 3 even. Number 1, it had a really good BSR. It's number 8. Number 2, you saw a profit margin.
Yeah, cool.
So you purchased it. And so would you say those are the 2 main things you're looking at when you're doing arbitrage?
Yeah. Now everybody has a different concept. Today it's different. Today, it's much harder to find that number 8 item at a good price.
Right.
But there's nothing wrong with buying. You could always estimate. Let's say you buy something that's 10,000 in a category. There are tools out there that will tell you, Jungle Scout. I don't know how the estimator. I don't know how accurate it is. But it gives you an idea that if you're sharing the box, the same idea, the same concept in private label that applies. Because assuming you're going to be in the top 5 position for a keyword, and that keyword tells you it's going to sell, I don't know, 1,000 pieces a month, and you figure you're going to get 20% of that, you could do the same thing. Because on retail arbitrage, everything is there. You see on the page, you got 10 people selling it. It's going to sell 2,000 a month. You're going to sell about 20 pieces. You know what I'm saying? Or 200 pieces a month, or whatever the number is. And if it's an item that's a repetitive item, you could always get. So you get a 6-week supply, and you just keep on going. After 4 weeks, you buy it again. If it's not a repetitive item and you feel that you have the funds to buy a lot of them, you buy a lot of them. You buy 5,000, 10,000 pieces. You try to get. But in general, as a general rule, you know how much you could sell, and you basically stock up according to that. Now, some people have a different outlook, and they'll be very comfortable with having 45-day supply, and they're going to constantly look for deals. And some people are very happy buying a year's worth. They know they're making 30% on the item, and they're going to make 30% on this, 30% return. And they're very happy making 30% over the course of the year on this item. And you have to have enough funds to do that. But generally speaking, the best thing is to keep on flipping your money. You keep on flipping your money, the compounded interest is going to build you, and you're going to build up a lot of equity.
When you have a product and it's not selling like you want it to, what do you do?
Cut the price.
So you liquidate it. You cut the price so that at least you get your money back. And
then it depends. You really have to analyze why it's not selling. Is it seasonal?
Yeah.
Is there a similar item that's on sale right now? Is there another listing for the same item? Sometimes that happens. There's another listing for the same item going for cheaper. Is it not selling because there's people, you know, undercutting you? You know, there's a lot of factors, but ultimately, once you exhausted all those factors, you're gonna want to sell it for a lot less. Now, there's a reason why you bought it in the first place. You know, if you bought something that's not selling, and now all of a sudden it's selling, and now all of a sudden it's not selling, why? You expected it to sell? What'd you do different to the item? Did you cut the price? Was it selling for $69.99 and it's ranked 90,000, so it's selling very slow? But if you go to $39.99 because you bought it cheap enough, it should sell. I've done that many times.
Okay.
But if you bought it having in mind that it's going to sell for $70, and that you have to be at that profit margin, and it was ranked very well at that time. In other words, maybe 10,000, 5,000, whatever it was, ranked in that category. There's got to be a reason why it's not selling. Why isn't it selling? So normally that doesn't really happen. It's going to sell. You know, there are problems. Sometimes the problem is that it shows up as these sellers, and now all of a sudden there's no buy box. So that makes a huge difference. When there's a buy box, an item can be ranked, let's say, if it starts off at 500 in its category, when there's a buy box, now all of a sudden it comes up these sellers. Now you got a problem. It's going to jump to 10,000. So it's going to sell a lot slower.
How do you find new products? When you decide, hey, I want to go and find more products that I can make a profit on, where do you go? Do you literally drive into places? I know you've hired staff before. Do you go online? Like, what are some of your tips for sourcing?
The game keeps changing. I used to do a lot of, do a lot with the stores, and I got to know the managers, and they put stuff on the side for me. That has changed over time, and you can't really do that. So I search online. I basically search online, try to make contacts. You go to shows, you pick up contacts, and you never know where that next great product's going to come from. There's always, a lot of times, there's always that 2-3, you could have 1,000 SKUs, and there's like 5 products that you're making really good money on. The other ones are like iffy. The other ones you're making, 20% return on investment or 15% return on investment. But you have those few products that are making you 100%, So you got to be in the game in order to find those products. If you're just going to sit back and wait for those products, it's far and few between. But once you find it, you got to utilize it.
Have you ever been able to find a product that, let's say you found it discounted selling online, then you later talk to the manufacturer, were able to buy it wholesale, bring that in and sell it, developed relationships, and then you have a list of contacts. Have you ever gone that far, or have you kept more?
I've had it the other way around, where I've had contacts and they started selling to Amazon, and they tell me when Amazon's not buying anymore and running out, and they're going to give me more, and they have pieces available, and they sell it to me for a good price. But generally speaking, most of the wholesalers and most of the distributors and most of the manufacturers, if you're talking about, if your sales channel, if you have a big box store and you have 50 stores, they want to deal with you. But if you're on an Amazon store, what are you really bringing to the table by selling it on Amazon? Because other people are also selling it on Amazon. So that doesn't really help you that much, unless somebody wants to push his brand on Amazon and he doesn't have a presence on Amazon. In that case, usually you're better off doing private label with an item like that and coming out with the same type of item if you're going to push it anyway. What are you going to push it for that fella?
Right. Do it for yourself and your brand instead, unless it's a patent or something. That's the point. Jesse says, I really enjoy doing arbitrage. Where I struggle is finding larger quantities of a particular item. What would you say to that, man?
That's the game of arbitrage. It's very unpredictable. Sometimes you can get 100 units, sometimes 50 units. It's not steady. It's very rare that you're going to find an arbitrage that you always have that steady item, unless you bundle it. Unless you bundle the item. If you bundle the item, you give a complementary item to that item, and you're able to create that listing, which is also a question if you could create the listing, because Amazon's gotten very tough with that. But there are a lot of cases where you could do it, and I know people that are doing it, and they bundle the item. You could do camera kits, you could do other stuff, and then you made it kind of your own item, and you're able to pay a higher price for the item itself, and then you have the availability, as long as it's not discontinued. And if it does go discontinued, you just do it with the next model.
So when you're creating your own listing, it has no ranking yet, so it's really hard to find. So are you running ads on that for arbitrage to get it going? Because when you bundle, now you have a whole new listing. In other words, we're not piggybacking anymore. Now we have our own listing.
If the item is popular enough, you don't need to do too much advertising.
Because they're searching for that brand name already.
Yeah, you're using the brand, yeah.
Gotcha. So you're piggybacking off the brand. That makes sense. PJ says this, Usher, what is your strategy to find these items? Do you look on Amazon to find the low BSR and then go searching for the product at different online websites? Or do you do it like your strategy? Like, okay, first I'm going to go to this website, then I'm going to go to Amazon. Like, how do you
back and forth?
What's the process look like?
It's really back and forth, but lately, you're basically looking on websites and then looking on Amazon what it's going for. And a lot of times an item that, you know, the average person could use 3 of, they're only selling 1. So you make a 3-pack and add it on, you know, and you could get, you know, if an item's selling for $10, one unit selling for $10, and you put 3 of them together, you can sell for $28.99. You're giving a better deal, and you have a better spread there.
So when you get to a point where you have hundreds and then tens of hundreds and then even thousands of SKUs, how do you manage all of that inventory in a way that's effective? How do you keep track of all these different SKUs to make sure you're at the right price? You know, it's low enough to win the buy box, but it's not so low that you are going to lose profit. What is your strategy for that?
We use a repricer. We use repricers. I don't know if everybody's familiar with the repricers, but, you know, you use a repricer, and you got to figure out what, you know, it's very different on certain items. It's different. An item you could always get, you could sell for cheaper. You're able to compete at a lower price because you could always get the item. So why shouldn't you make the sale making 10% as opposed to waiting for 20%? And then again, you have items that you can't always get. So those you want to stay a little bit higher. Sometimes you wait until people, you see, it became a real fight in the old days. You were able to get the buy box at about 2 to 3% higher than somebody else, and you would share the buy box. In other words, somebody's charging $100 for an item, you could charge $102.99, and you will share the buy box the same way. Today, it's a race to the bottom.
Right.
So you got to be very careful with the race to the bottom. Yeah, and Amazon loves that race to the bottom because it's good for the customer.
They make more money. Keeps it going. So let's talk just a little bit about what you mentioned. You mentioned something interesting. You talked about the difference between waiting for the price to go down, I mean, for the other competitor's price to go up so that you can sell yours and get a greater profit, versus why not sell it now, get 10% instead of waiting for 20%? Could you talk a little bit about your philosophy behind that? Because one sounds like, okay, over here, this is about cash flow. Over here, this is about revenue, profit. What are your thoughts?
Biggest question is, what's your financial situation? And number 2 is, how often could you get the item? Now, there are items that I can't get anymore, and I'm very happy that I have 1,000 units of it because I'm selling it at a high price. I had an item that I bought at one of these big box stores, and I bought about 12,000 units. And that's probably the best item I ever bought. And it was selling at like $25, and it was ranked pretty well. And I bought it for $11. And by the time I sent in the goods, everybody was killing the price because everybody bought it. Everybody was just killing the price. It went up to 24, 23. So what I did was I really killed the price. I made it like $16 or so. Price came all the way down. Everybody came down. The second 8, 9, 10 sellers started coming down and matching me. I just jumped all the way up to $39.99 and waited it out. It sold out within like 6 weeks. And then I was selling it for like $89 or something like that.
But let me make sure I understand this. So you bought a huge quantity of items. You knew there was going to be a tremendous profit. You listed it, and all of a sudden, all the competitors' prices are going down. So your strategy was you drop your price way down here, so everyone else does the same. They sell theirs off really fast. You raise your price.
I jumped up right away. The second 5 sellers came down, I jumped up. I sacrificed.
You're the only one left after they sell out of their stock.
And it wasn't available anymore. Yeah.
Gotcha. Do you use a tool for checking their inventory? Do you use the 999 method? Do you even go that far?
I used I used to use the 999. Now I don't look that much. There's too many SKUs to look at, and I don't study it as much. But I used to sit and really do that. I used to sit and look. But the truth is, you don't know how much a seller really has, because he could show 283 units, and he might have another 1,000 units in his warehouse. You don't really know. So, and it doesn't really work with merchant fulfilled sellers, because you could have your settings set 3 per customer or 2 per customer, stuff like that. So it's not going to show the number. You could even do that with FBA today, that you could limit the purchase to 4 units, and it's not going to show you 999. It's not going to show you 280 or something like that. It's going to show you 4 pieces. 4 pieces are available to purchase. So it doesn't really work anymore that well. But you could gauge it. You could gauge it. You know how it is during season. I don't know if you went through this, that all of a sudden you bought something, right? And it's selling at $100, and there's 20 people selling it, and now all of a sudden there's only 3 people left on the page, and it's selling at 159.
And it happens in hours sometimes. Yeah. Boom. You wake up next morning and yeah. So here's a question. Let's take 3 different kinds of products. Okay. One, it'll sell within a week and your profit is going to be low, like 10%, even 5%. Others, it's going to take about 3 to 6 weeks to sell. Profit's a little higher. And then over here, it might sit there for 6 months, but once it sells, it's totally worth it. Do you try to spread your products out across those strategies, or do you tend to focus on one or the other? How do you do that?
Whatever comes on my desk, whatever comes on my desk, I just treat it that way, you know. And sometimes you gotta pivot, because sometimes the item all of a sudden is not selling, and now you got to figure out why, and you know, you got to guess right. And sometimes you just get sick of an item. Honestly, you just get sick of it, and you just say, "That's it, I'm out, finished. I'm not carrying this again." You know what I'm saying? Like, and sometimes you have a high rate of returns, and there's always a different reason why you made it, and it doesn't mean it's the right decision. It doesn't mean it's the right decision. Right.
But you're the kind of guy, you figure things out as you go. You fly by instinct and you just make it happen. You're a hustler. I mean, you just do it. So you don't stop. I'm gonna think. You just make it happen and figure it out as you go, which I love. So here's a question. PJ says, have you ever bought from liquidation retailers? And if you have, what was that like?
When you're saying liquidation retailers, you're talking about a brand new product in retail packaging, or you're talking about store returns?
I think she's talking about where, I'm guessing, and PJ, you'll have to expound on this, where they bring in those huge pallets from trucks, and these are a whole bunch of overstock items. Maybe some of them are returns, just like a huge combination of stuff, and they're in pallets and they've wrapped them. We have one of these down in San Marcos, and you go in, and you can buy the entire pallet or everything that was in the truck for a really good price. Then you bring it into your warehouse and you go through everything and decide what's sellable, what isn't, and so forth.
I don't touch that.
Situations.
I'm not built for that. I don't touch that. You have to have a lot of knowledge. I know people that do that and they make a lot of money doing it. You have to have a lot of knowledge. You have to know how to refurbish. You have to understand how to repack. You have to understand the functions of every single item. Let's say you're buying a hairdryer and you got 500 pieces of returns on hair dryers. You got to know, you know, what the functions are, and you got to know it's not overheating. You got to know there's no defect.
Right. There's not some issue or liability issue that you don't know about, and that's the reason it's sitting there and they're trying to get rid of it. Yeah.
So I'm sure there's a lot of money to be made over there, but you got to be built for it. You got to have a team of 10 people, and you got to have the repackaging, and you got to have the stickers, and you got to be able to, you know, you got to know what you're doing in order to do that. I would recommend, if somebody wants to do that, they should go to a refurbishing factory for a while and work over there and learn it, you know, and I'm sure there's a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah. So I'm gonna reintroduce you for people who just joined. So hey everybody, this is Seth. Can you keep it real? This is Usher Orzel, part of the private label program. He's also doing retail arbitrage for a long time. He does around 1,000 transactions a day. In peak season, $200,000 a freaking day, $200,000 a day in revenue. And those profits can be from 10% all the way up to something a lot higher. What we're talking about is retail arbitrage and his experience in doing that. And Lucas, it looks like you have a question. Go for it, brother.
Oh, no, I'm good. I just I thought we were going to introduce ourselves, say hi. So I'm just saying hi, Usher. Nice to meet you, brother.
Awesome.
Thanks for coming on today.
I think I met you. Didn't I meet you in Vegas for a minute?
Yeah, actually you did. I was sitting there with Seth. We were doing our one-on-one, and we had a good chat for a minute. So that's correct, man. It's good to see you again. Yeah, it was a good short conversation, man. That was really fun.
You remember that idea Usher shared? Usher,
yes.
You want to share that idea, Usher? Like, this is the kind of thinking I love. Like, Usher, do you want to share it really quick? You know what I'm talking about?
When was it? Amazon needs competition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I remember I was like, we should do a Airbnb of warehouses, and then I looked it up, and people are already doing that. So
yes, they do.
Yeah. The opportunities are so crazy. So basically, the idea was, what if we created our own platform and like competed with Amazon, like completely? You know, like, Usher, you are absolutely insane, my man. You're crazy, but I love you.
Seth, aren't you guys talking about like doing a little Shark Tank, like an Amazon Shark Tank?
Yes, we are, and it's going to happen. It's just a matter.
That's called the magic of thinking super duper big.
Yes, it is.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
Start with Shark Tank, then just take over Amazon.
I don't think Amazon can be taken over, but they do need a heavy dose of competition in order for them to start acting a little bit differently towards the sellers.
Ain't that sweet?
100% agree. Amen to that. Yeah, absolutely. Like
it's all about the customer. That's why they're so big. It's all about the customer. But they have to be a little bit more on the sellers. It's too easy to sabotage somebody. Unfortunately, I could, like if I was that type of person, I could really sabotage my competition, and people are doing it.
Right.
And it could really turn your life upside down. Like all of a sudden, from 1 second to the next, it turns your life upside down. They want you, you're competing on a product, and that's it, finished. Somebody else gets you suspended, gets you bad reviews, gets you kicked off. It's a very big problem. There's got to be something that they could do. One of the things that would help that is if there was stiff competition, which they don't have.
Yep, 100% agree. And like the book says, the 25 irrefutable rules of marketing, usually have who's first, and then you have who's second to market. And they're the majority of the market share, and everyone else is a small, tiny percentage of that. So maybe someday, 10 years from now. Okay, next question. PJ says, Usher, when do you start stocking up for the fourth quarter? And what categories besides toys do you focus on? Great question.
You know what I find? I find that everything sells in the fourth quarter. Even the everyday items.
Right.
If you're selling cups, people are having parties. People are loading up on that. It's not even a gift item, and people are buying it. Everything really picks up in fourth quarter. Obviously, some things more and some things less. You know what I used to do a lot? I used to jump onto toys, which doesn't work today anymore. I used to buy all the popular toys, and even though Amazon carried it, and you can't compete, because Amazon would run out of it at least 5 times during season. That's not really the case today, because now they are actually stocking enough to carry them straight through season. So that's not a game anymore. But basically anything. Now, the beautiful thing about season is, if it's an item that, that people are going to run out of stock, you could charge a lot more. You could really charge a lot more. You could buy something for $10 and sell it for $25 instead of selling it for 15, 16, 17 bucks, and even 30 bucks.
Do you go into that knowing they're probably going to run out of stock based on last year? Like, how do you figure, or do you just say, well, I'm ready to go, no matter what, I'll make a profit, and if they do run out of stock, here's my strategy?
I used to do that. I don't really do that as much anymore, because Amazon will stock enough of it. I find that, they've gotten better with that, and the suppliers are working better with them, and they are stocking enough of it, so you can't really do that. There's no question that there's money to be made in arbitrage, but a lot of the things that you used to be able to do, you can't really do anymore. It used to really be the wild, wild west, and everything worked. Today, you really got to niche down to what works and not expect, crazy growth. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, it's not going to be that crazy growth that you used to have, but you can make a nice, steady income from it.
Yeah. One of the challenges for arbitrage is you can only scale so much until you run out of time. So anytime something becomes too massive or too time consuming, we always ask the question, okay, how do I create software or buy software to automate this for me? A simple example, customer buys a product, 1 week later, you want a message going out thanking them for it, making sure they got everything and if they have any questions. So the software does that for me, Job Toolbox, Feedback 5, so forth. But in arbitrage, you have to keep sourcing. And as Jesse said earlier, it's hard sometimes to find large quantities of items unless you're really lucky. So what do you do when you run out of time? Could you talk a little bit about staff and hiring people and teaching them how to source? What did that look like for you, man?
Not the best at it. I'm really not the best at it. And that's why I work so many hours. The ideal thing would be is if, let's say, you have a big box store that you're buying online from, and it's a steady item, you could just give reorders to somebody to make for you. The problem with that really is that what stops that person from doing it on his own? Everybody has an uncle, everybody has a cousin, and you know what? Hey, let me, I got this item. Let's open an Amazon account. And I've been doing it for my boss. Let's do it.
You're training your competition, basically.
Yeah, so it's tough. It's really tough.
One thing I noticed is I talk to some people that, I climb with at the climbing gym, or, just know from that aren't involved with this business at all. And I'll get in conversations. I'll be like, yeah, I source ceramics in Mexico, or I do this or that. And it really pings me, and I'm super stoked on that. I'm like, oh, wow, you should consider selling on Amazon, or if it's, in my favor, I might be like, well, I might consider, purchasing from you and doing wholesale through you or something. But usually it does get to that point where I kind of offer, I'm like, wow, what, I know you don't know what I know, which is this Amazon beast it exists, and you could actually exploit it to your favor if you put in the time to learn it. And usually I can feel it like right away, and their instinct is like, that's just too much for me. You know what I mean? So that's another thing that I've noticed. You know, a lot of times people can't.
People get comfortable with what they're doing. You know, some people don't want to be on Amazon because they are selling to stores, box stores, and they don't. A lot of box stores, if an item is on Amazon, they know they can't compete with Amazon. If it's on Amazon, they don't want it. If it obviously it's not a big brand, but it's like you know, like bedding. Let's just say bedding, and all of a sudden it's available on Amazon for $19.99, and you're giving it to them for $17. They don't have the markup anymore, so they don't want the item being on the box store doesn't want the item being on Amazon. Therefore, your friend is not selling it on Amazon. You understand what I'm saying? On the other hand, something like that might be an opportunity if it's the right product. It might be an opportunity for you to say, you know what, you start buying it and selling it on Amazon. You know what I'm trying to say? You build it up on Amazon, which again, why wouldn't you just do your own item? But the truth is it saves you a lot of work. Let's say bedding, it takes a lot to go do it. The packaging, the sizes, the thread count, the quality control and stuff like that. And cost of inventory. Cost of inventory, your buddy has, you know, your friend in the gym has cost of inventory. He's carrying cost of inventory. You're just basically being an agent, sending it in on Amazon and building up a listing. Then becomes a problem. What happens once it starts going? Does he have a son that wants to come into the business, and he'll start doing it? You built up a listing for him, and now he's going to tell his son, "Okay, go ahead, start sending it over there." He stops selling it to you. So you really gotta protect yourself. I don't know if there's a way to really protect yourself. You know.
Yeah, there's something that we do when we as in myself, my wife, sometimes Josiah will be involved in this too. When we partner with other, so let me go back. So a lot of manufacturers of a new product will approach us and say, "Hey, would you like to sell our product on Amazon?" So we're like, we're interested. So we'll look into it. We'll observe it. We'll talk about it. And if we'll test the product, if we really like it and we understand that they're not on Amazon, we can't find it anywhere, we could be the first to market, then we think, okay, here's an opportunity. So we'll set up a contract, and the contract works like this. They own the product. We own the listing. And this is really important because what I don't want to happen, and I've seen this happen to other people, where you create the listing, you get it ranking, it starts selling 40, 50, 100, 200 times a day, and it's making money, but they have full rights to that listing. And like, okay, thanks, done. And all, as you guys know, in private label especially, all the hard work is up front for each product. Most of the hard work, 70%, is at the first several months, and then the workload goes way down as the money goes up. So we set it up so that we own the listing. So if they ever decided to cut ties, they have the product, no problem, but they have to start over. Now, obviously, their knowledge may have increased. They may be able to rank better because of that knowledge, but it's hard to start over when we already have that listing going. See what I mean? And unless there is a patent infringement, what's to keep us from building that product ourselves? So that's something we've used to de-risk ourselves. Really quick, guys, I want you to think about something.
Let me ask you something, Seth.
Yeah, go ahead.
How do you protect yourself? Is there such a thing as you really owning the listing?
No, technically Amazon owns it. But on the contract, what we explain what we mean by that. If for any reason we part ways, we have access to the listing. It's ours. In other words, we get to edit it the way we want. We get to do what we want with it. And because we created it, we created a sub-user account for them to log into. We just cut it out so they can't get back into that listing.
But the ASIN does exist, right?
Yep.
So they could come from a different account and just start sending it in. It's not gated. And if it is gated, they own the company. They could prove they own the company.
Right. They could gate it, absolutely, but the contract would protect us because we have the listing. And so if we had to go to court on that, and 100, which we haven't, 99% of the time, it's the simple, healthy fear that we went into a contract together.
I get that.
If they do that, it decreases the chance that they would ever even try that. And we haven't run into that yet, which is cool. One thing I want to share with you guys. So think about different levels of selling in Amazon. You have arbitrage over here. Then you have private label. And then you have brand new product. Now just think about this for a minute. In arbitrage, you're selling on other listings, typically. You're selling off listings and brands that are already there. So you get in faster, takes less cash to generate capital more quickly. I think that's what PJ and Jesse are doing right now. Then over here in the middle, you have private label, which generally speaking, and this has changed over time, instead of it just meaning, hey, I slapped a little logo on this thing, you're actually tweaking, making an improvement off an existing product. Then over here, you have new product. This is where eWoo comes in. It creates a huge opportunity for that as well, where you're actually launching a brand new product that has not existed yet. It's not an improvement of a product. It's actually a product that is new. Like it accomplishes a purpose that you know there's demand for, but the means of accomplishing the purpose is different. To use a super simple example and overly simplified, an umbrella versus sunscreen. They both do the same thing, but they're very different products. This one over here has the greatest risk and requires the most upfront inventory and research and investment. This has the least risk, but it requires the most ongoing hustle, and it's hardest to scale. This one over here, you can sell as a company and make the most money. This one you can sell, but it's harder because you don't technically have a brand. You have a turnkey system. Okay, here you go, but there's still a ton of hustle to go with that. And this one's in the middle. So just think about that, guys. So over time, and this is all about resources. You manage your resources and you put them in a place that makes sense. And Usher, you're probably, and I mean this as a compliment, one of the most emotionally detached people from your listings and your resources I've ever seen, which is a huge advantage, I think, because it causes you to go, huh, okay, that number works. Let's try that. Okay, that works. Like it's like that. For a lot of people, it's the other extreme. It's like, I put time and money into this and I have to make it work. And if it doesn't, I'm doomed. And I know that's an extreme example, but could you talk a little bit about that, Usher? How do you have that mindset? Because you're very like, just here's the facts. Let's make it work. If it doesn't, let's move them around and make them work over here. You know, very automatic, very robotic. And I don't mean that in an impersonal way, but very like, this is the facts. These are the numbers. Make it work for me. So could you expound on that a little bit? What is that like for you? And how do you make that work effectively for you in your business?
I think it's part of me doing retail arbitrage a lot, starting off over there. You know, in private label, I could understand somebody who gets really attached to his product, and that could be the enemy. That could really be the enemy. You're sinking in money into PPC. There's more competition coming and all that. And all of a sudden you find yourself, you wasted 4 months on a product, which there's nothing wrong with putting in 4 months, but that's all you did. And it's not going, it's not moving. You're just sinking money into it.
Right.
In retail arbitrage, there's always something else coming up. There's always something else on the horizon. You know, you got to hustle, you got to look. It's not the same thing because you're always on your tippy toes looking for another deal. But sell off the inventory, go to the next item. Sell off the inventory, go to the next item. You know what I'm saying? Or what are you gonna get crushed that you had a great item, now it's not available anymore? Yeah, you know, it sucks. You're able to make a lot of money on the item, but now you can't get the item. So what are you gonna do now? So you're gonna stop, you're gonna quit. What are you gonna do? You keep going. So that's basically, you know, that's kind of the mindset. So, you know, I tried in private label, and private label for me was very tough. And it could be I picked the wrong items. It's very possible I picked the wrong items. And you know, a lot of items I dropped, and I'm trying other items. You know, you just keep on going, you keep on trucking.
So it's more the principle and the drive of, I'm going to continue to make this work no matter what, and I'm going to mess up along the way.
You got to pay your bills, right?
Yep.
Bills don't stop. Your kids got to go to school, right?
Yep. They got to eat.
You got to eat, right? So you got to keep going. So what are you going to stop? That's it.
They really got to eat. You have to bring in the semi-truck of food. Over the years, when my wife goes grocery shopping, the amount of food that is brought home has just increased and increased and increased and increased. It's insane. And now that we eat organic, that bill's a lot higher too. But that was our dream for years, to be able to do that.
Yeah, try eating kosher.
Oh man, I can't imagine. I like certain kinds of meat too much. Jesse says, like cutting a new mold takes forever, it seems. Absolutely. I mean, really, Jesse, what you're doing is it's a new product. Like that, it's brand new. So, and I love that you have both extremes. You have the arbitrage over here, and then you have on this other side a brand new product over here. High risk, low risk, long time, more money, shorter time, faster cash, but less money. So that's really cool. Any other questions, guys, before we go? Go for it.
Hi.
Yes.
I was on the YouTube, but I had two questions. The first one is, you talk about 500 units, 1,000 units, 12,000 units that you buy from retailers. How do you do that? Is that, I mean, I never thought that you could scale to that level. I knew that some people find 20 units, 30 units, or 10 units. Usually they say just put 5 units in that listing at a time. But how do you find those deals? Do you work directly with the people in the stores, or how that works?
it's a combination of a lot of it, of all the above. And some of it I work with the people in the store, and I started, you know, I got to know the managers and stuff like that, and they put it on the side for me. At one point, I knew what's going to be on sale a week before anybody else knew what was on sale in the stores, you know, because the flyer comes out. They got to print the flyer a week before, and I knew what's going to be on sale. So, you know, I was prepared for it, and I would call the manager and say, put it on the side for me. Doing it online, they noticed that I'm buying a lot, and they would contact me, stop buying it online. They'd give me deals, you know, offline. It develops, you know, it's all different types of things. It did get tougher. I'm not going to say it didn't get tougher. It got a lot tougher. In other words, the stores aren't doing what they used to do. A lot of stores are canceling orders, and that's not because the store doesn't want to do the sales. It's because the manufacturer is limiting them, and they don't want it going to resellers. So, you know, it's a dance. It's really a dance. It's a hustle. But every once in a while, you get lucky and you make a good contact, and you never know how long it's going to last, but you make that contact and write it out.
Okay, good. My other question is about liquidation stores, but not the previous one.
I got you.
Like Toys R Us.
Okay.
They are closing right now everywhere, and I know that investing right now you can get some deals, but if you put them, if you put the toys on Amazon or everywhere, they will have a lower price because everybody is doing the same thing. If you go to one place like this, should you keep the inventory until later, where everybody's?
That really all depends. That really all depends on what the game plan is. Like, are you going into Toys R Us buying something for a certain price that you can't make money on, hoping that down the line you'll make money on? Is that what you're saying?
Is that's what I'm asking. What's the strategy there? You should buy today to sell them on fourth quarter, or?
I wouldn't recommend that. I wouldn't recommend it unless you have experience already with that product, and you know that it's going to go for more, or you have something to base it on. You have to have a reference to base it on. You can't just guess. You know, you really have to have a reference. But I know Sam's Club closed up a lot of stores, and I know people that went down to Sam's Club in the beginning. They were doing 20% off, and then later on they were doing 50% off on all the inventory in the store, and people were buying out everything. Toys R Us, probably the same thing. I didn't go, but Toys R Us is the same thing.
Yeah, is that I watched a video from some guy that did retail arbitrage with Radio Shack when Radio Shack went out of business, and he did a lot of money. But
there's always these type of opportunities, but you know, nobody tells you all the times that it didn't work out. You know what I'm saying? So you really have to study it and understand it. You have to have experience in that. You can't just go and buy something and hope that it's going to go up. You got to look at the price history, the availability, who else is selling it, why is the price going to be higher? You know, you got to analyze that.
Okay, thank you.
So what it sounds like you're saying, Usher, is this is an industry where you start small, you keep going, you start building connections. So for example, you might go to Five and Below and buy 5 items. They're on discount. They're below $5, whatever. You realize they're selling a lot more on Amazon. You sell them quickly. You come back in, you buy 10, then you buy 30, and then the manager notices and you talk to them and you become friends and like, hey, we got 70 of these coming in and we probably won't sell most of them. If you want to buy these off, or this deal's coming up, or there's a different item, you check it on Amazon, you notice the BSR is low. So you kind of work and grow into it. Yes. And then through the relationships, you get these large quantities. So would you say the primary way you were able to buy large quantities of items that you saw arbitrage is through knowing someone, like a manager or something?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. That changed. It used to be like that. That changed. I haven't been doing that as much. I used to do that primarily during season. I used to hit, I'm not going to mention exactly which stores, but I used to hit the stores, and I had 4 of them, and I had a whole team of shoppers and security and everything, and they gave me my own 3 registers and stuff like that. And people still do it today, but I can't do it anymore, and I don't have that contact to do it. Right. But it's constant. I mean, you never know where that next contact's going to come. You really don't know. You know, you go into a store, you know, they want to push their numbers. You know, let's say I'm just giving an example. Walmart in Austin, Texas. You know, the manager gets rewarded if, let's say, during Black Friday, during holiday season, he usually does, I don't know, 10 million. If he could push the number to 12 million, it's a big jump for him, and there's bonuses involved and stuff like that. So they might have an incentive to push out items.
Right, right. Which goes back to knowing people, which is another one of those 4 resources we talk about. That's awesome. Cool. Other questions, guys? How can Usher help you? Anyone? Usher, thank you for being here today, man. Really appreciate it.
All right.
Everybody,
nice,
keep going, you guys. Have an awesome day. Hope that's been really helpful. Next week or the following, we're going to have a guy who's also a member of a private label course. He lives in Turkey, and he is crushing it. He has a YouTube channel as well, and he has actually been teaching people how to do Amazon for a while, and he's going to come in here and talk to you guys likewise. Jesse says, way to hustle, Usher. Thank you guys for being here this morning. Awesome. And guys, thanks for your patience on us hustling to get you here, and thanks for being here last minute, Usher. Really appreciate it, man.
All right, no problem. Good to see you, Usher. Good to see you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.